Thank you, everyone. It's great to be here. I have a couple of disclaimers before we get started. I'm talking about project management for AI projects, so mostly digital. Doesn't really relate to physical. Two, it would be impossible for me to fully explain 3 different methodologies in an hour. So we're going to go high level, and I hope we get done in about 40 minutes, and then I'd like to have a group discussing about this. Third, if my jokes don't land, that's okay. I'm gonna edit it in post, and I'm gonna add that like sitcom laugh track in there, so don't feel bad about my jokes. So, show of hand, who has ever had an AI project go exactly as planned? Anybody? The only predictable part of AI is the chaos. So, as mentioned, I lead AI product strategy at DEI, which basically means I'm the translator between data science executives and existential dread, because no one knows what's coming next for AI. Traditional product management was built for certainty, and AI is all based in probability. One is about control, the other is about discovery. Here was about control. AI, just like that. So we're gonna unpack why the old playbook breaks, what frameworks really work, and how to manage AI without reason understanding. I brought the talk when I describe a failure, it sounds familiar. I encourage dramatic sighs, when you're swearing under your breath, it is all good. So, did a kind of an intro on me. I'm not just some guy with a ChatGPT account and a dream. I do work across industry and government around AI product development. So I started my career in product management and project management, and then transitioned into consulting where I led data science teams. And I've never led a data science before I started consulting, so I was kind of thrown into the fire. And one of the frameworks that I'm going to talk about today actually got me through my first consulting gig. And I used that for the rest of my career to build great ML products. So I also wrote a book on gamification for product development because behavioral manipulation of test wall and focus groups. So if you want to check out my book, it's gamification for product excellence, which has nothing to do with this talk here. Also co-founded with Chicago Futures Fund. So we meet downtown about once a month, where executives from different Chicago companies that paint different scenarios of the future. How is AI going to change what we think, what we do, what we build? And I know we don't have a crystal ball. If we did, I would have already won the lottery. It would not be yours to come to you. But reach out to me if you're interested in joining us. Like you, I'm obsessed with process. But AI keeps reminding me that control and certainty are illusions. And I need to learn that lesson pretty hard before I transition to one of the frameworks we're talking about today. And so that's me. That's who's walking into the probabilistic fire today. So let's talk about what we're going to learn. We have 3 goals, all achievable before your captain wears off. We have understanding the fundamental mismatch. So traditional project management was built for certainty. AI was in probability. The gap alone explains tax the failure rate when we're looking at AI projects. We're going to learn at high level some AI-specific frameworks. So we're not just carrying things down, but we're saying like these are frameworks that work. CRISP PM, dual track agile, and CPMAI. Sounds like alphabet soup, but they're all different, and they help control the AI and chaos. It stinks. And then I'm going to suggest that we transform into a systems thinking mindset. AI isn't a project, it's a living system that changes, it drifts, it evolves. So my high-level goal is to stop managing projects like the construction projects and more like it's 5 hours to eat. And so let's look at the evidence for why you're not in charge of crying. People from this failures. So has anyone heard the MIT report that's come out a couple weeks ago? 95% of AI projects don't return AI. This norm. Heard that, seen a couple of the audience. I like to call them pop culture statistics now. So it's a new trendy stat that everyone's sharing, and everyone's sharing that, but no one knows why. So like these numbers spread faster than ISTAT challenges. They sound impressive, and they sound impressive in their funding share. AI failure is real, but do we look at the data behind those stats? I think it's totally debatable. There's different definitions of failure, there's different sample sizes, there's different levels of optimism from whoever gets quoted. So when you see a headline claiming 95% of AI projects fail, just translating that to someone wrote a LinkedIn post that got a lot of links. AI failure is real, but why talk, in this session, they don't fail because AI is risky. They fail because we're not able to, in an immune process, we're managing it like it's linear. It's not. So quick check, anyone that's working currently on an AI project, has anyone had to prove ROI on an AI pilot before it's even had its data? Anyone asking to work in AI? Well, welcome to Schrodinger's business taste. We want you to be able to prove ROI on something that hasn't even been created yet. So we're going to look at the fundamental mismatch that makes all this so predictable. Well, so traditional project management came up with construction and manufacturing. Predictable, linear, uniformly controlled. Gather requirements, mock scope, deliver stock. Perfect if we're employing conflict, not training models. AI shows up. We don't have blueprints, we have hypotheses. Instead of schedules, we have experiments. Traditional project management says success equals on time, on budget to spec. Well, AI success equals the model works saying that you're doing business. So there's different levels of success to what we're looking at with AI. And it's not that the issue is PMs are bad at managing AI. That's not the case. We're just, we're inheriting tools that were designed for studying to manage probability. And just it's a completely different platform. AI development, it's iterative, it's messy, it's full of surprises. You don't know what you don't know until you begin to get data. You don't find the data problems up front. They find you throughout the sprint. Sometimes they find you later than you hope or expected. So you see the quote on the bottom. So Gartner says that 39% of orgs cite lack of data as their biggest AI barrier. What's it really saying is that you have to be kind and discover the data before development. And that's where some of the key pieces of this framework comes in. Whoever here starting a project thinking you have great data, and you want to start a project and say, we have the data, we have great data. And then you open the Excel file and you find that Illinois is spelled 13 different ways. It's IL, it's INL, it's full of noise, right? So, oh man, we have to go and clean that data. Welcome to machinery. That's some of the challenges that we deal with. So let's talk about your time actually goes through this right. And here's a comparison of where we had to bet and where we need to go. So you see, if you're spending 80% of your AI project time on data work, you're not failing, you're finding, doing it right. A lot of this time should be spent up front. It is the foundation to success. Traditional project management frameworks maybe 20% to requirement gathering and only rates to build. And the big accomplishment was to build, we're done into build. But most AI projects are 80% clean data, labeling, reconciling, wondering why someone stored birth dates as text fields and then changing, how the data is structured. Sometimes we hate that because it feels like nothing is moving, that we're stuck in this couples. But in AI data couples, when you find out it's actually possible, it's a hypothesis until you go through the data and you start building models, and you find out the inherited possible. Data prep is not the predate, it is meant. So, every training effort goes into data. So what are you doing next? Well, let's skip over to carefully proven financial AI success. There are others out there. Microsoft has their own framework. These are ones that I could use, that I've been a partner, so I can speak to these from experience, and I could speak to these from research and finding better options. So the good news is that chaos frame. We have the free CRISP PM, dual track agile CPMAI. These were not invented by consultants on caffeine vendors. They were built by people who got tired of watching models die in production. So CRISP PM is your starter kit. It's how you stop guessing and start learning how to manage your framework. Dual track agile is your bridge that helps you deliver an experiment at the same time. And CPMAI is your enterprise mode. So when the CFO starts asking about audit trails and ethics in your AI, it is in-depth enough so that you cover 90 bases. Think of it like Pokemon evolution for project managers. You start with CRISP PM, it's the curious little Charmander AI projects. Then you evolve into dual track agile, chameleon stage, it's going to get fiery. And CPMAI, that is ultra structured and powerful and slightly terrifying to find. For the two Pokemon fans I had inside of play. And so when I say choose based on maturity and not emotional maturity, even though that helps, I mean, how many production models can you afford actually handle? You have one machine learning model in your organization that you're building a product around your rapid and then, or do you have multiple products, or what product with multiple machine learning models? That's where the CPMAI has the best value. And who is already writing something like Agile? Who is a structure in the organization? Agile, waterfall, mixable, waterfall with stand-ups. It's called agile. All right, so we're going to start at the beginning. We're going to CRISP again. We're going to spend the most time on this one because it's the foundation. So the other two, as we'll see, they take a lot from CRISP EM, so we'll go over this a little bit more in detail. So CRISP EM stands for Cross-Industry Standard Process for Data Mining. It's been around since 1996, before smartphone, before TikTok, and before most executives started using AI as a code. So it was built by people who were doing real data mining, a guy named Chrysler, Teradata. They weren't looking for hype, they were looking for a process that actually worked to get them to their goal. So what's amazing about this, it's still the most used framework, 43% adoption rate, and it hasn't changed in almost 30 years because it works. And so far, no one was brave enough to come up with a more complex acronym. So it has 6 iterative phases: business understanding, data understanding, data prep, modeling, evaluation, and deployment. And the genius is how it's not looking at me. You go back and forth, you adjust. It's the scientific method disguises project management. So the first phase is business understanding. This is the most important thing throughout any type of development. When you talk about project development, product development, what's the problem that we're trying to solve? Who's could have fed it objects to get played? It's like, oh, cool, we have this new AI tool, we can do this thing, and you build it, you go out there. But what's the purpose? How do you tie back to the business? Most AI failures, because someone said you want a 90% accurate model. And when no one asks accurate at what? What do you want the model to be accurate at? What is the model supposed to do? So define success in business terms, not technical work. Cite a quarter of your project site here. We'll save the rest from becoming this case study and regret. Once you go to why, the next start for it is one with the ability to actually have that. So you think you have clean data, you don't. I've never been on a project, and I hear all the time, well, we have clean data, our data set is 100%, and then we open up the data set, and we're always going to have to be some cleaning. This is more like detective work. I actually hosted a challenge for my team, and I said, we're going to have a daily detective challenge. You have to go through, and you have to find the correlations in the data, you have to find the data. On Amazon, I got these really cheap, like $2 detective badges. And I'm not kidding you, every week, whoever found the most interesting thing in the data got a detective badge. And it was cheap, corny, but they actually kind of liked it, right? And it made it fun, because as much as we can, fortunately, make fun. Hashtag gamification. You're going to find gaps, duplicates, customer database from 2003 that's somehow applies your billing. I worked for a global quick service restaurant who was literally still running operations on an Excel sheet, and it's crazy. There's a lot of data in Excel. So if you rush this phase, and your model's going to learn the fantasy instead of the reality. The model's output is based on what goes into it. So if it's bad and accurate data, if it's data that's been manipulated to look better than it is, there's going to be things that come out the other end. So now that you know your data is toxic, time to clean it. So this is where 50 to 80% of the project time goes. And that's a good thing. It's good to go through and clone the data that's invalidated. There's also, if you don't have data, there are sites out there now that sell data. If you want to test a concept, you could create synthetic data. This is the most important stage because it's the foundation of what we're trying to get out of AI, to the data that it's trained on. So every business will hear changes your model's behavior downstream. Is that correct? Like it is if you work to then critically think about the stage. And if you think they're all done with data prep, they're not. You're halfway to realizing they have a missing entry column to data data. So once you control this, get the data in the style experiment and smooth it out, find it into models. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, and this is what a lot of people rush to, but now you get the model, you get to test it, you get to deploy it. Still, it sounds simple, but it's not. There's a lot that goes in here, and you don't just build one model, you build multiple models. You pick the one that actually works, and you realize that you need to retrain it up with. Also, when you're building a model, you have to look at accuracies. What's the case? Is this 80% accurate? Does that work for your business case? Is 80% accurate case for you and your customers? What does it look like? Does it need to be 92%? How much time are you going to spend on it? This is the variability of working in machine learning. You don't know these things when you start. You only know these things when you start building models based on data. So this should take you any direction and then see some critical thinking involved. And instead of about the accuracy, you have to go back and this amount to get them into the business problem they're trying to solve. And if it does, great, move forward. If it's not, go back to one of the stages. And fundamentally, it's not an ending. It's a maintenance for other stages. CRISP PMI is it accepts what traditional project management demands. You can't plan discovery. And you can't see what limits your model accuracy until you build it and you test it and lift it back. So let's go with a positive negative with CRISP PM. So it's fantastic until it isn't. Where it really shines, if you're just getting a seat with what machine learning, like for small teams, pilot projects, get an R&D lab set up for AI. This is great. It's free. You can pull the information online. It's a low lift to learn it. It's intuitive, battle tested. It's been nice to landing and it's code relevant today, just like Hyzy ago. So it's not just how data scientists actually experiment first, plan later. Where does it fall apart though? Governance, compliance, scale. If you're managing 5 production models or working at a regulated industry, what's the deal? It's like bringing a spreadsheet to a store and fight. We're just not going to win. So it's great for experimentation, not great for scale. Start with it, grow with it, grow out of it, learn how to use it, and then move on to something stronger. So what's the next thing? Dual track agile. This is my favorite relationship counseling framework. It separates for data scientists and engineers. One track is discovery, where we experiment, test, and figure out what's real. And the other track is delivery, where I actually build the thing that works. Agile smashes those together and calls them a sprint. Dual track says, let's stop pretending discovery and delivery and move at science speed. So, think about it as 2 highways that are going into the same destination. Just speed limits a little bit faster on one than the other. Discovery asks, should we build it? Should we build this? It's like phases 1 through 3 of it's the discovery, cleaning the understanding and the data. And delivery asks, could actually run through without exploding. So that's when your fork and sticks. You're getting to deployment, you're building it out. Who here running or is involved in an agile organization or playing agile? Yes. Also goes well, how hard it took just to transition to agile to get good leadership. And I know we just transitioned to agile last year, but I got something to do. That's probably not going to go over well. It's a battle you might not be able to win. So here's my best intelligent alternative. If you cannot get the company off the agile train, you can bring the data science framework to agile. So how does it work? Each track has its own rhythm, and the secret's integration. So it's shared backlogs, weekly spending, so a clear definition of done enough. So we can feel up and slow and deliver. But it's really saving you from wasting 6 months building something that doesn't work, or it's not going to get the business going that you're looking for. It's better to fail on a Jupyter notebook than in production in QA. It sounds great in theory, right? You know what I'm talking about. I can tell you got a data scientist here. But let's talk about what happens if fluent actually get involved. So teams love dual track. This keeps everyone learning and delivering at once. You have faster navigation, you have less waste to visit the progress. Hopefully fewer innovative executives. But it's also twice the coordination, twice the meetings, 3 times the confusion about who's doing what. It is a lot to manage logistically. So my favorite question that comes with this is, when does it discovery end and delivery again? Well, right before someone says, hey, did you learn something new with the data? It is constantly evolving, and you've got to keep making leadership calls about when you stop, when do you start, what is good enough. So how do you make it work without group therapy? We rotate, we align, and we define. So this is the most powerful thing that I'm learning as I'm getting my speed with this. Switch goals. Put in data science, test on the delivery sprint. They'll supplement understanding deadlines and make pressure to act quickly. Put engineering and discovery. They're going to start assuming the data is clean and the minutia is to go through and clean up the data from the especially environment types, and love switching roles. So they understand each other's pain points, and that creates a stronger bond with the new team. Then dual track is good for team development. And we're focused on sharing outcomes, not outputs. I think too often you get involved with our individual statistics. How many story points did we get on the spring? How many lines of code did I distribute? But it's really as a team, what did we get to? What's the shared outcome that we're trying to get to? And use that as the vision to bind the team together. And this works when everyone realizes that it's one team to tell folks. All right, you got discovery, delivery, playing nice. Now let's scale it. Scale it? Yes. So this is where CPMAI comes in. I do this to the enterprise standard, and I'm not just kissing up to PMI, but I think when they bought CPMAI, it was the best future facing this vision. And actually in a large organization, especially a member organization like this, like CPMAI is what I trained on 60 years ago when I started consulting. I found it from a friend. They introduced me to someone in Washington, D.C. They had no framework, started learning it. And I went through complete chaos with data scientists. I think data scientists working 80 hours of success within the model at 82% accuracy. And we were wasting time, not wasting time. We were learning when we didn't have the time, and it was pushing a project back. So after we implemented CPMAI, we saw us get back on track. And CPMAI stands for Cognitive Project Planning for AI. PMI is an AI framework, and it's legit structure. And you even have an exam, and you know how much we all love taking those PMI exams. So this one's one in experiments. It's for organizations running multiple production models at once. It handles governance, ethics, MLOps, compliance, the parts of AI everyone forgets about until the regulators and the auditors come. So these things are important, and it's better to blend them into the process and think about them at the end. Well, we do some call it email about it. And it doesn't treat AI like a one-off project. It says manage it as a portfolio of all the systems. And it helps you, what CRISP PM helps you build your first model. CPMAI helps you manage it 20. It's really for organizations that are AI future focused. And anyone here in a regulated industry like finance, healthcare, government, yeah, a lot of regulations, a lot of audits. This is where it comes in. It bakes it in the framework. Literally, it's in CPMAI is CYA. So, I mean, the framework is basically waiting for enterprises. And like what makes a difference is the building government, but also the detail. CRISP is great, but it's high level. CPMAI goes into detail. It uses frameworks and structure to be leading this. So I'll run through the 6 phases. You're going to see a lot of similarities to CRISP, but again, when it sets up the parties, the detail. So we have business understanding. We went over that. Data understanding, readiness, privacy, compliance, access, privacy, and compliance. Only to use the data. It's also very important in the discovery process. Sometimes just as we audit doesn't mean that you can use it. Data preparation, how do you build pipelines, MLIs. So there's a whole division of MLOps, certified or specialized engineers, feature stores, quality checks, version control. A lot of that in prep, not in development. So here's where you experiment and turn them out, detect bias. That's something I love about CPMAI. Is the model biased? It has been trained on your feelings, and feelings are biased. How much of that bias did the model pick up? Incredibly important. When we're looking at some of the industries we talked about, healthcare, finance, others. If you build a machine learning model that authorizes people for a well, and there's bias in that, and someone audits it, figures out, and that's liability. And I'm sure everyone here likes to create cool stuff and decrease risk. Well, that risk readiness is built into this framework, which is why it's really powerful. And that model evaluation, and you custom performance, fairness, and drift resilience. So I could go into a whole tirade about drift and build a model. Data changes, all items change, and the drift happened when the data isn't relevant anymore as it used to be. So we have to be planning for that. And then we operationalize it, deploy, monitor, and go with, retrain them out. How often do we have to retrain it? Again, it's a living organism. It's not regularly chipping. It's now it's alive. How do we continually to nurture it and to grow it to make sure it always good? All right. So CPMAI doesn't retest on a customer, it creates it into a system. CRISP evaluation means checking at your model performance. CPMAI evaluation means proving that performance is reliable, explainable, and fair under audit conditions. So you're still going to validate accuracy, but now you're defining acceptance thresholds that tie to the KPIs. The model accuracy and the output should tie to your KPI. That's very logically that in doing this the right. You log every fair discuss and mitigation decision. If someone comes to audit you and see what you built and why you built it, we have a log and we would say, yep, we checked fairness, we checked bias. Here's the logs from the last 16 landing days, whatever that is. You can generate modeling cards and decision logs for traceability. Why did we do a certain thing a certain way? you have to retrain a lot of the other sending data. So you have this in your backlog to be able to go to, so you're not going to work a lot of time. And then biggest part of this is low predictability. You want to scale. If you're a large organization and you don't want to do some of the same things all the time, so you enables you to build a library that you can use with scale. And then the funding's not a finish line, and start of continuous governance. Kind of a sexy, isn't it? CRISP teaches you and your models to learn. CPMAI makes you prove that learning is safe, repeatable, and accountable. So let's zoom in on what makes CPMAI special, the governance that's useful. So another way to say governance is maybe guardrails for burn-ups. Most frameworks bolt them at the end like it's an afterthought. It's CPMAI skips systematic from day one. Also, there's a lot of textbook slides, knowing that always is in detail, and this is so comprehensive. I'm going to send a PDF to PMI afterwards, and they will all get a copy with that, so you get that this information. So, every phase in PMI was built in chop points. Do you look at ethics, bias testing, how do you explain this to customers? I spend a lot of time at adoption, and the one thing that freaks people out a lot about AI is that they don't understand how it works. So as you're going through the process, you're delivering a talk track. What did you build? How did you build it? Why did you build it? How you that explainability is going to be super powerful when you're bringing this to market. Your customers might ask. If you do it internally, your employees are going to ask, how does the machine up? Compliance of what you cover. And we never invested in what good enough means. Everything is documented, it's reviewed, it's traceable. We love to experiment and do R&D, and it's fun in that phase. But when you scale, there's certain accountability to you to implement your company, and this helps conceptualize and put it in the framework. So let's say you help CPMAI foresee constraint phase before you launch. Is the model accurate enough to help patients and not friends? Can you make that decision? Will the model provide help to patients and not friends? Are the predictions on how the model works easy enough to explain to a regulator or a patient? And then can every decision be traced back to the data source? When we say that this output is based on this data that we collected, we have the rights and access to this data. So it's not extra paperwork, it's improvement, it's risk mitigation, and it's doing it AI the right way. So I've seen companies add AI ethics at the end of the project as they're getting ready for launch. That's like airbags going off after the crash. Too little, too late, you need to blend it in. And governance done right, it's not about control, it's about confidence. It's about how to make confidence, use it AI the right way, you launch it, and with information and successful. So, which frameworks apply? Now, you don't have to climb a maturity ladder. You can take the context of the framework that fits your context, your appetite for complexity. This isn't about age or size, it's about what fights you've actually won. We talked about, being an agile organization, the low cost of CRISP. So CRISP, small teams, for experimenting, start here. Open source, simple, you can find common template. Dual track agile. For teams that are already living the agile life. If your org already speaks agile and you're going to fire to saying otherwise, keep that for them, use the dual track. You're going to want discovering, delivering AI. You can take AI in your existing playbooks without rewriting it. And it's pragmatic, it meets your culture where it is. CPMAI for enterprises building AI as point infrastructure. You want to be an AI first company, you're already managing multiple collection models, this is the investment framework. Turns AI from experiment into an operating system from business. So my recommendation and advice for anyone that want to dive into one of these, it's not where you live, not where you wish to live. Because no one ever won a project by using a framework that actually wasn't ready for it, and it's just going to cause more disturbance. So whichever framework you choose to shift isn't the method, it's how your organization thinks about AI itself. And this is where part of the battle is a culture battle. You have to shift from project thinking to probabilistic thinking. So I know I bring the concept from project to product. A couple people I mean, like that. ChatGPT actually recommended that. And I know that's old, that's tired, once it's wired. So as we're thinking about this going forward, thinking about your culture shift from project to accountability, technology changes the gives part. The hard part is to get humans to stop thinking in a linear fashion and start thinking like systems thinking. As you talked about at the beginning, traditional project management is built on control, scope, budget, timeline. AI laughs at all three. It's probabilistic, it's dynamic, it's alive. You don't finish AI, you parent it. It was like a small, needy child that can get attention all the time. So it's never done. You deploy it and monitor it and retrain it and redact and trigger models like employees who need performance reviews. That deliverables fine from you. So business impact, the metrics matter. We went over the statistics and the cultural statistical significance, right? Everyone looking at stats. How do you develop those statistics that prove what you're doing right? I saw once an AI team saw about 90% accuracy until they were realizing they were predicting last year's data. So you really have to compare and see what you're doing, and if the set doesn't make sense, look into where it came from, because there's probably symptomatic. And as you're going through this, we're talking about the 8% in the beginning. Like, failure isn't failure, it's data. We're learning every time a model fails, and understand why did it fail? Did the data cleansing process fail? Why did that? Every iteration can do something real, and it needs to be better and stronger about what we're doing in AI. And then in culture is learning velocity over project velocity. Think about what we're creating and what we're working on. We're working on machine learning. We're attention from computers to learn for themselves and learn from us. We have to learn with them, but it's going to be even more because it's an M&A. So you're not managing deliverables anymore, you're managing probabilities. What is the acceptance rate that I'll convert from this machine and about about 60%? Can get to my 2% accuracy in the time that we'd actually put this project? I think people obsess over accuracy of models and just stretch out timelines. Those are the judgment calls that are going to help in your project management background and when to go back to the business case and say, was this really achievable with the data that we have? But it's not always going to be. So anyone released an AI project that seemed to create the day after launch? It's not fun. And if you have welcome to the club, when you meet, we create and retrain tests, because every time new technology comes out, there's some caveat that we haven't seen before, and we'll go through, we'll learn something and circle back. So I want to give some examples of measuring what actually matters when we're working on AI. I know we all love metrics, right? We love it. That's how we judge ourselves. We look for various reports and burn down charts. The problem is AI doesn't care about payback. So being on time, on money, on scope, you can hit all three and deliver a model that is absolutely nothing for the business. It's like building the perfect bridge to nowhere. So let's shift to what matters. So the real metrics about learning and adaptation, not completion. So you'll see from left to right, experiments per week. Listening to your learning velocity. How many experiments do you do with data this week? How fast are you testing your hypotheses? If it's either 10, it's probably an L&D lab, not an AI incident. Model complex doesn't just measure actual accuracy, measure uncertainty. Knowing what the model doesn't know is just as valuable as going to what the model does out. And then monthly value decay. Every model drifts. Measure how quickly it loses relevance without your training. If you're not tracking delay on decay, you're already at different models decay at different speeds. So when deploy something at the same time and update the data set clapping and it from decay over 3 days, you could also release a model and won't decay for 3 months. It depends. That's just something that always needs to be taken into account. And then drift response time. How fast can you detect the drift and fix that before you see performance drop off? This is your AI version of mean time recovery. So you can't brag about your launch date. Your models are already outdated. The best AI teams don't measure what they built, they measure how fast they're learning, how long it stays useful, how quickly it can consider under breaks. So who here's been asked, when will it be done? I don't get timeline questions all the time. Now the official answer is never, but it's working. So if you get anything out of this, I just want to go over 3 things from today. Just the three truths in developing AI in moisture. So traditional project management fails because AI is probabilistic. Project management is built on certainty, AI relies on accountability. Linear planning and fixed scope don't work when the outcome is consistent learning. It's more like gardening, continuous care, unpredictable growth, and occasional pruning before you stay there. So that's my really cheesy way of thinking about how to think about AI. One person laughing, that's good enough for me. Proven framework to exist. Now you got these are these three based on my opinion, and obviously PMI did not have bought CPMAI to then see the value. There's no one size fits all, and then in your organization. So Christian, if you're exploring dual track, including trends in agile, CPMAI, Christian. These aren't religions. We're not joining the agile cult. These are the frameworks, the toolkits. They're supposed to help you in what works best in your environment. And then success requires a mindset shift. It's not a project, it's a living system. You don't deliberate, you steward it. And with success depends less on process and more on the things you learn, adapt, and scale. And go. And then it doesn't reward control. You cannot control AI. There are non-deterministic outcomes. Has anyone put in the same prompt and ChatGPT and not the same answer both times? So you can have the one to talk to you. I haven't seen that person that. So how many, just show of hands, who feels like you're ready to rethink how your teams approach AI, if you're approaching AI? Was this helpful to see, like you would use, would anyone use any of these frameworks when they transferred any of these frameworks? All right, some people I could work with that. That's the real success metric, is trying to experiment these frameworks, learn more about them, and can build on their AI. So we've talked about frameworks, scaling, and probably triggered a few project management flashbacks. But here's the point of all, they're not just checklists. Like these are the tools to help us build the next generation AI. And that's AI that actually helps people. I mean, that's what I'm passionate about. I've been lucky enough to build AI products for healthcare, to help lower medication prices, to help people with prior authorizations. I've worked on AI and logistics to help companies that are able to cut costs so they can keep their labor staffs on and reallocate budget. There's a lot of AI that goes along with now, right? So there's so many jobs and everyone's going to be, relevant, but I see a lot of examples too. How it can stay jobs, and that there's something cool technology in healthcare. So, there's a ton of examples out there. If you want to read a really cool vision of the future, Anthropic's CEO, Gary Modi, has a paper out there called Machines of Living Grace by Gary Modi. And he looks at the next 25 to 50 years of AI, coming to 2050. And based off of where we're going right now, with applied to machine learning model, generative AI, how to change society, how can change healthcare. It makes a bold statement that AI is going to allow us to live 250. I don't know if we're going to be in that cohort or not, but it's some pretty cool stuff to think about. And structure matters. If we're not doing AI in a structured way with government to be able to audit our decisions, just another trying out that we should just go back to making fun and track videos on Google Video. So frameworks help us from spending $100 million on a chatbot that calls customers by the wrong name. So we've all seen it. You've all seen when it's one of those bad, and you have one of those incredibly frustrating chatbots. Don't be that person. This is different frameworks. All right, so I'm at time 41 minutes. I was only about 6 minutes off. I listed all the slides, but if anyone is super interested about CapEx to OpEx and the CFO, we can go over that. There's a 90-day action plan and some tasks to implement CPMAI, the organization that we have published. But I'll start with questions, comments, and